on, folks? As you can see, still on the move, different from my original location, but nevertheless, this has to be done, sticking to it. Talking about Atlanta, the most recent episode titled White Fashion. Overall, I thought this was kind of, this episode annoyed me, but I felt like it was the intentions to annoy people, especially annoy people of color. For those who didn't see it, but want to see it, this is a spoiler review, so maybe you want to click off on it and maybe come back later. But nevertheless, let's get into it. We definitely start off with, which happens a few times a year in real life. There's always some type of notable high fashion, not even high fashion, like H&M even was, did that with the whole Coolest Monkey in the Jungle thing. But nevertheless, at least a few times a year, there's some clothing company or fashion line that simply gets caught up in the whole, dropping off something that's just racially offensive. So this episode is no different. They're just simply talking about how that really happens on this fictional show. Nevertheless, this happens, and this is where our main characters, Earn, Al, and Darius, come into play. Al is selected to be part of the diversity board. And one thing I did like about this episode was, Paperboy is going to extort those people for what they're trying to do. Extorting them. He's asking for, if you want me to be part of this, give me some tailored suits. Give me 3 days worth of tailored suits. You know what? Matter of fact, give me 3 years worth of free clothes. He was going in, and for that, I can't blame him. Nevertheless, just to fast forward with it, Earn actually is kind of hesitant about this. He's asking Al, are you sure about this? These are clothes you can afford already. I don't think he said the words exactly, but I felt like he was trying to tread lightly and try to warn Al that he doesn't want to come off like a sellout or something like that. Nevertheless, Al goes through with it, and this is where he meets Khalil. And Khalil had me dying with that one key line. If you've seen the episode, you probably know what I'm talking about. Khalil is he's a Black Lives Matter advocate, and he has his own nonprofit organization, the whole 9 yards, this, that, and the third. And so he's been around the block a few times in terms of, not taking advantage of, but make sure he's benefiting from these white guilt mistakes is what I'm gonna call it. You do something racist, you feel bad for it, you bring in some people of color who have nonprofit organizations, and these, in this case, Khalil was making sure he's going to fully take advantage of this opportunity. Rightfully so, I suppose, But nevertheless, he's trying to give Al just a bit of a, some pointers and so forth. Nevertheless, they get on here in that line where a reporter asks Al about, do you think racism will end? Which, of course, realistically, it'll never end. The racism is just as strong as ever. It's been around for, way before we were born, and it's still here, clearly. But nevertheless, Al, aka Paperboy, begins to give this in-depth answer the best way Paperboy knows how, only to get interrupted by Khalil by saying racism will be over by the year 2024. Nevertheless, so long story short, as far as, storyline with Al, he's clearly learning the hard way that, these people who are trying to, quote unquote, be part of this diversity board are kind of out there for themselves. And you see that when, Al is saying, let's try to, inspire people to give back to the community. Let's, build up our own communities, this and the third. And everybody else is in it for themselves. I want people to buy 1,000 copies of my book. I want my nonprofit organization to take advantage of this and the third. Even the mixed guy, or either mixed or very light skinned, one or the other, he's like, man, I want some Jordans and I want to get business class, this and third, just to show, make fun of, people who really do that in real life. Not going to name any organizations. But there have been some people who have been accused of stuff like that. Like they front like they're, trying to be for the betterment of Black people in the community, but they're really just in there for their organizations or in it for themselves in some matter. One of the things that also frustrated me was the storyline that had Darius. Darius, of course, is always getting into an adventure. And once again, I felt like this episode was purposely ran to like annoy people of color. Simply is schooling the, I don't want to call him the assistant because she clearly had, had bread and stuff like that. But nevertheless, she was schooling someone who was escorting him around town about, Nigerian food and how he enjoyed it so much, this and the third. Has such a warm, home feeling with the cook, Darius did. And next thing you know, he comes in to go to the shop the next day. The white woman who was taking all these notes and just embracing this culture messed around and bought her out like the very next day. Had her own food truck called the Naija Bowl, and just her own version of Nigerian food, which was colonized or bastardized to say the least. And it was just horrible. Darius feels bad about this. He felt kind of betrayed, almost like, you use me for intel and then you turn around and you buy out the place that I was, growing fond of in just that quick, amount of time. So this was just all around just a wild episode. And of course, the other part that really frustrated me was when, Al, Paperboy that is, when Paperboy, he's trying to move forward with this positive message of, hey, let's uplift our own communities. Let's do something positive for the black people of color. Let's let them know that we can build up and stuff too. He, submits this, video, or they take the audio from his video and they literally all lives matter his message. And of course, being so frustrated, they totally missed the mark. And I thought it was real talk that Khalil pulled him to the side and was like, hey man, do you think this organization that makes so much money is going to really put out a message letting people know that they should build it themselves instead of their company? You got the game backwards, man. Which makes sense when you think about it. It's you can't, it's almost like, at least in my opinion, you can't really instill your certain beliefs on big organizations, thinking that they're going to have your best interest at heart. For example, being a hip hop head that I am, I know Rick Ross invested into a lot of like Wingstops and I think Checkers as well, and he's put those places in a lot of black communities. So he's doing the work by himself. To my knowledge, I don't think he's putting any type of faith in some other big organization. I think if anything, he's teamed up with other people of color who have that same goal. So I thought that was, a wise talk, if nothing else, from Khalil to Al, showing that Al has a lot to learn. And with that, I feel like Al is getting his footing in, and who knows, maybe he'll do the same thing and be like, you know what, I'm gonna just do for self in terms of making sure people clearly get my message instead of all lives mattering my black message. So that was the main part that frustrated me, and of course, Karen's gonna be Karen. We finally get to see what Van is up to. And of course, she runs into Ern. Ern is frustrated, obviously, reasonably so in my opinion. And before he could further get into why he's frustrated with her and, try to find out why she's been ducking him and, all being so distant, a woman comes in just pissed and is trying to accuse Van of stealing. Always to the point where she's trying to make a citizen's arrest and being the most causing a scene. And whether Van stole the thing or not, that just seeing that just frustrated me to the core. And the reason why I say, whether she stole it or not, we clearly see that, they have that intimate moment, Ern and Van. And he asks her, did you really steal that wig? Because he's kind of having second thoughts, especially being that Van is kind of acting a little different. She doesn't answer the question. Instead, they end up not ruining a romantic moment, and the rest is history, and that's how it goes off. Well, it goes off, as you know, earn waking up with nobody next to him in the bed. Like Van hit it and quit it and literally dipped out. So I really appreciated the message and episode. As you know, as always, they're always going to give you some type of a dark time. Well, it wasn't even that dark. Just give you some type of a harsh reality with some comedy in there. It reminded me of almost like a Dave Chappelle type of vibe. Like that seems like a stand-up comedy bit that Dave Chappelle would do in a roundabout way. But nevertheless, I did overall appreciate, I guess, the message. But it's the same stuff, you know. It seems like that cycle always repeats itself. High fashion company does something racist, they quickly apologize. In some cases, you know, they'll perhaps come up with a diversity board, and instead of seeing a real change, you know, some of these people who are selected on the diversity board are really just in it for themselves. And unless you really want change, you really have to go in, feet on the ground yourself, and kind of do it yourself. Or, you know, take advantage of the whole white guilt thing, and then take that money and then put it to better use that you see fit. Which I believe that's what Khalil's message was as well. Like the money that his nonprofit organization, you know, he's with, it goes to some positive stuff for people of people of color, but he also maybe pocketed some of it himself. Who knows? Nevertheless, I'm still rocking with it. There's still some questions I need answered. I still want to know what's eating Van. Something is still clearly not right with Van. And I need to find out what's going on with Socks. If they get rid of Socks, did they find out about what Socks was doing? Did Paperboy even find his cell phone? I mean, if you paid attention throughout that whole episode, well, never mind. He must have found his cell phone because he did the whole let's build our communities or let's represent our hood commercials with a cell phone, or at least someone's cell phone if it wasn't his own. Nevertheless, I still have those questions. I need to find out what's going on with Socks, what's going on with Van. And yeah, this has been another episode of Just My Opinion with Ryan. Hate it or love it, it's just my opinion. Peace.